Why does a crypto channel talk so much about the war in Ukraine? This is the question that I got from a few guys, and I decided to make a video to explain why I talk about geopolitics on a crypto channel. Hi, my name is Boof, and welcome to Crypto Vagabonds YouTube channel. In this channel, we talk about cryptocurrencies, geopolitics, macrofinance, and everything else that may affect the performance of your favorite crypto asset. If you do like this kind of content, please subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell. So as you guys can see on my introduction, when I say I talk about cryptocurrencies, geopolitics, and macrofinance, and everything else that affects your crypto assets, I would assume that people understand why geopolitics affect cryptocurrencies. So I'm going to give a very brief example on why I follow very closely what's happening geopolitically around the world. And the reason is very simple. We do know that monetary policy do affect price of assets. On the bull market, when the stimulus is there, when the Federal Reserve or central banks are creating money out of nothing and inflating the money supply, we have the bull market. Conversely, when the central banks start to increase interest rates, diminish the amount of capital in circulation, prices will tank. That is called deflationary pressure. It's one way to call it. There's many other names. So what happened is, if you look at Ukraine and you understand about the market and food supplies and so on, you find out that there's a lot of grains and fertilizers that come from that area of conflict. The very flag of Ukraine is golden with blue sky. Golden represents the wheat, the grains that are planted on Ukraine, and blue means the sky. We can interpret that golden color as grains being planted on a very fertile soil which belongs to Ukraine, and all of that, of course, then gets shipped out of Ukraine to other countries in Europe and some countries in Africa. Little brackets here. If you do see and ask yourself why so many African countries are asking for peace, is because a lot of those grains do go to African countries. Africa is suffering with a shortage of food because of the conflict. Now, back to the central banks. So when central banks are trying to bring down inflation, and the tool that the central banks have is increase of interest rates, and if I look at the conflict in Ukraine and I see that there is less grains, less fertilizers coming out of that area, I can foresee an inflation on food caused by less food available for us to buy. That is offer and demand. If there's more supply, more offer, and less demand, the prices will go down. If there's less offer and higher demand, the prices will go high. So as the conflict in Ukraine causes a shortage of grains or food in the world, I'll believe that to be inflationary pressure causing food prices to go up. If food prices go up and the central banks want to lower inflation, and the only tool they have is the increase of interest rates, I would say the longer the conflict goes, until of course there's adaptation and we find other sources of grains, there's going to be inflationary pressure on the food. Therefore, inflation is going to go up, and it's very likely if the central banks continue with the narrative or with the agenda of lowering inflation, they would have to increase interest rates. Of course, I've spoken about the impact that we have in food prices. We also need to see there's a lot of energy commodity comes from there, such as the gas, natural gas, petroleum. So there are a lot of other resources that are coming from that region that would also impact the price of things. So that's why I am watching and looking closely to the conflict. And there will be other secondary effects beside the inflation of price of food or price of energy commodities. The price of energy pretty much affects the price of everything else. But also there is also the depleting of resources, which happens with war. War equals destruction. So when France and NATO allies are sending resources to Ukraine, that would have an impact on their economy as well. So that's why geopolitics do affect the price of assets. As interest rates go high, we will see all else equal asset prices such as BTC going down. So that's why for me, if I do want to make investments and want to make better allocation of my investments, I do need to follow what happens geopolitically. So that's why you're going to be hearing here a lot of things about geopolitics, such as right now the main subject is the war in Ukraine. There are other conflicts as well, but that conflict is having a significant effect on the price of assets, at least on my view. Now my question to you is, what do you think? Do you think geopolitics do affect the price of crypto assets or not? Please let me know on the comments below. This is it for today. See you guys on the next video.